Okie dokie, let's start with my review of the LG X Cam, and I want to clarify one thing. Just today I checked the online pricing, and here in Germany it sits at around 270 euros. When I got it, actually still 300. But if you just check what you get in terms of specs, in my opinion it should be somewhere at around 200 or even lower. So if I will complain about certain stuff, I am comparing this with other $300 phones and not the $200 phones that I think it should be compared with. So keep that in mind. If you find it in another country for closer to 200, you can definitely see things a lot softer, but at the moment it is what it is. So I would say let's get into the design and build quality. And as you can already see, one thing here that is one of the highlights, it is super thin. Of course also super compact, and one-hand usability was definitely nice with still definitely very nice and thin bezels. The back here is very grippy and it doesn't really attract any fingerprints. Really well done. It's still just plastic, but it makes an okay appearance, though the device I feel creaks a little bit too much, so it doesn't feel all that solid and sturdy. This could have been improved a little bit. Other than that, we have here the LED, the dual cam, which I will go into a little bit later, a microphone. On the left side we have the volume rocker, quite okay in terms of tactile feedback, but it's almost flush, so quite hard to find. Here we have the SD card and SIM card tray. Here we have the microphone and the micro USB. And we have a headphone jack. Even though this device is so thin, they still managed to get that. Here we have the power button, a little bit too high for me, but for everyone else it should be just fine. And overall the device definitely feels great in the hand. It could feel a little bit more sturdy, and as you can see here, it is very glossy, especially this, but it kind of looks definitely nice in my opinion. We have a notification LED. And other than that, there's nothing to complain. Here's the speaker, by the way. So they did a nice job. It just could have felt a little bit more solid in my opinion though. But when we talk about the display, I have to say the 5.2-inch IPS display with a resolution of 1080p makes a quite good appearance even in that price range, because it is maybe not the brightest one and the viewing angles are not super stable, but the rest is really nicely done because the white point is really good, not too warm or not too cold. The black is quite okay with an absolutely normal amount of IPS glow, and the colors, they are absolutely nicely done, not oversaturated at all, but definitely not too washed out or so. So they found a quite nice balance, and I'm definitely very pleased with this display. Even for this price range, it still can hold up. Actually, if you would, what you should compare with $200 phones, it is better than the average. But now, if we talk about the next thing, and this is where I'm a little bit more disappointed, is the sound. I guess it's obvious, the speaker is completely terrible, absolutely not good. It's not loud, it's very weak, no bass, no, okay, mids and highs are there, but it is just so low in terms of volume that it is definitely not a enjoyable experience. And kind of the same, but not that much, is the headphone jack, because it is not super loud, but it gets the job done. It's the normal one that you usually get, not really better or worse, so that's what it is. Now, let's get into the performance, and we have a MediaTek, as you see, no apps preloaded, we can kill them off. Check a little bit what we get in terms of loading times. As you can see here, the app loaded quite fast. Let's render it. As you can see here, the app loading times are not super fast, but actually still okay. For $300 you definitely find already faster ones, but it gets the job done. The MediaTek SoC, in my opinion, is something that is not planned to be really fast, because usually it's used in really cheap Chinese phones, and that's why I'm a little bit upset that we actually have it here. So if we quickly check the browsing, as you can see here, it's fine. This is still fine, absolutely no problem here. Nothing really groundbreaking, but this is where I would still say in line with most of the ones in this price range. But you can find phones, especially here in apps, that perform already a lot better, because there are like $100, $150 phones that just have a little bit less lag and have higher frame rates, because as you can see, there is a lot of micro stutter going on. But other than that, the performance is okay, but I would say $150 to $200 okay, and not quite the almost $300 that they actually wanna get from you. So as you can see, the loading times, this is usually the internet, but yeah, it's, I would say just about okay. And the gaming experience is, I would say, slightly maybe above that, but also not all that good, because Games like Asphalt still actually run quite okay, and also Riptide runs quite smooth. Not the highest frame rates, but definitely no real bigger frame rate drops, which is fine, but it really doesn't provide the best gaming performance. You can already get something better here, and especially games like Modern Combat ran actually quite weak and not with high rate frames. It's actually hard to be even played. Heating was not really an issue, so I wouldn't really bother about that. So I would get to the battery now. A full charge takes about this much because I completely forgot the value, but if we talk about the battery life, I was actually surprised that it was still good, because the battery at around 2500 milliamp hours isn't that big, but it helped me for an average of about 4.5 hours on a daily basis, and this is actually quite good, slightly above decent, so all fine here, I would say. Now, if we talk about the software, I like it because if you have a SIM inserted, you would actually have 5 lock screen targets, which is something that I personally like a lot. You have the customizable quick settings, but I would actually wish for them to expand in some way and not that you have to scroll. This is just something I don't know. But if you already see the design, this is something that I absolutely like, because this is very clean and minimalistic. You have pretty much just 2 colors. You have the white, you have this kind of teal color, and you have black. That is pretty much everything. And I think with all these icons, it looks very minimalistic and clean. You get options to, for example, change the navigation bar, or the launcher is absolutely fine. There is one with an app drawer and there is one without an app drawer, so you get the option for you to choose. This is something you should keep in mind. And I was actually using Nova, by the way, but it is very similar with the one with the drawer, and other than that, you don't really get too much extra stuff, but you get the most important things. So I would say here we are covered fine. I actually like the UI by these days, and the updates could come, but I'm not quite so sure about these specific devices that are maybe not the mainstream ones. So let's talk about the camera now, and we have the dual cam feature, but before I'm going to talk about that, let's check selfies. They are definitely decent, definitely okay. They could sometimes be a little bit sharper, but not really anything to complain about. The colors are okay, the exposure and all that. So here we are covered quite good, but once we go into low light and artificial light, I have to say things get quite dark, and I definitely already thought I got the wrong phone when I checked it. I thought these were actually the shots of the LG stylus that I had, but no. This was the LG X Cam, definitely not the very best low light capability. Once we go outside, it was still actually the same, because I expected the camera to produce better shots. Don't get me wrong, it produces actually with good lighting, really sharp shots with definitely a very nice working autofocus, reliable and fast. Shutter times are quite good, and the colors, sharpness, exposure and everything works out quite good. So here is nothing really to complain, but it could have been a little bit better, because something like the LG Stylus 2, which is a cheaper phone, actually managed still a little better pictures. And there is, yes, the feature of the wide angle cam, but I have to say the odd thing is that the quality on that one drops quite noticeable, because when I switch from the normal one to the wide angle one, you definitely notice that it's just not as sharp anymore. But if we go into the video qualities, things are kind of the same. It is above average, it is smooth, the autofocus works with a one pump system and quite reliable. So here is nothing to really be concerned about, is quite solid. And you can even record videos with the wide angle cam, which actually is a quite cool feature. But as you maybe have seen also on the footage, I had a lot of lens flare. Even though I cleaned the lens, I had that a little bit of an issue, but it was extreme light, so I will give it to that. So that's it about the camera. Let's get to the finishing point here. The only problem in my opinion is the price. If this would have been priced at around 200, I would have said yes, because if you want the wide angle feature, you want a really nice and slim phone with a nice display, okay, the sound isn't that great, performance is still about okay in this price range, the battery life is absolutely solid and it feels great in the hand, sure, you can go for it. But for 270 euros, there are just a lot of better phones out there. There are phones like the Idol 4, there are phones like the P9 Lite and even the Nexus 5X, and you sometimes even get something like an LG G4 for this price. And that's why I don't think it's quite what it could have been, because a G5 isn't actually all that much away from it, because here sometimes, at least in Germany, you can already get an LG 4 for 400. And 130 euros sounds a lot, but you also get a lot more. Because in my opinion, this is a lower end mid-ranger and not a mid-ranger where it is priced at. So like I said, if the price falls, you could consider it if you maybe especially like it for the dual cam feature, which I don't think is a selling point, because the quality of that one isn't nearly especially in general, on the level of a G5 or anywhere that, and even in this price range, there are already cameras that are just better. So it's not a bad phone, and it doesn't really have any major flaws besides the price, and that is what it is, and that's where I will leave it. If you like the review, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, leave them down below, and I would say we'll see us next time. Bye.